You know what's interesting about people who love old cars and motorcycles? They almost never give you the real reason. Ask a person why they're obsessed with a 40-year-old machine that breaks down, drinks fuel, and needs constant attention, and they'll say something like the character or the connection. Maybe they'll mention the history, the craftsmanship, the purity of it. All of that is true, but it's also just the surface, because underneath, the neuroscience keeps pointing somewhere completely different, and most of them have no idea. Scientists have started paying serious attention to what actually happens in your brain when you spend time with old machines, not what it feels like, what it does. And what they keep finding doesn't match what most people, enthusiasts and outsiders alike, would ever expect. Here are 5 hidden reasons intelligent people love old cars and motorcycles, the ones backed by actual science, the ones nobody in the community ever really talks about, and the ones that might change how you think about this obsession entirely.
Reason 1. Old machines are the only thing that fully shuts off your anxious mind. The first reason, old machines force your anxious brain completely offline, without any effort on your part. Here's something most people have never heard about their own mind. There's a network in your brain called the default mode network. Think of it as the voice that refuses to shut up. It switches on anytime you're not doing something that genuinely demands your attention. When you're lying awake at 2 a.m. running through a conversation from 3 years ago. When your brain loops back to regrets, worries, and things that might go wrong. Scientists have found this network is the main driver behind anxiety and depression. It's not loud or dramatic. It just runs in the background, quietly, all day long. And here's what makes old machines different. Interacting with one is demanding enough that it forces this voice completely offline, not because you're trying to clear your head, not because you're relaxing on purpose, because your brain doesn't have room to run both systems at once. Brain scan studies show that high-demand tasks shut this network down in measurable, repeatable ways. An old car with heavy steering, no driving aids, and an engine that needs constant attention delivers exactly those demands the whole time you are driving. Intelligent people often describe the garage or an empty road as where they think most clearly. The neuroscience says they're not imagining it. Reason 2. Riding an old motorcycle literally rewires the brain over time. The second reason goes deeper than stress relief, and a real study proved it. In 2009, Dr. Ryuta Kawashima, the neuroscientist behind the Brain Age games, partnered with Yamaha and the University of Tokyo to study what riding a motorcycle actually does to your brain. He took men in their 40s, some of whom hadn't ridden in over 10 years, and asked one group to ride to work every day for 2 months. The other group changed nothing. At the end of the study, the riding group showed clear improvements in memory and spatial thinking, the ability to mentally picture objects, rotate them, and track things moving in real time. And here's the part that surprised everyone. When Kawashima compared riders to car drivers, he said, "A car is a comfortable machine which does not activate our brains. It only happens when someone jumps in front of us. A real motorcycle keeps the brain fully switched on the entire time. 2 months, daily rides, measurable improvements across multiple unrelated areas of thinking. Intelligent people are drawn to things that keep their minds sharp. Old bikes do it without them even realizing it." Now consider this for a moment. Most people look at someone obsessed with an old, unreliable, high-maintenance machine and make quick assumptions. Someone running from modern life, someone who can't let go, someone who just really loves the smell of gasoline. But the science keeps pointing somewhere completely different. The engineer who says tinkering in the garage on weekends is where his mind works best, he might not be escaping reality. His brain may actually be performing differently because of it. The last 3 reasons get even more specific, and one of them begins before the engine ever turns on. Reason 3. The sound of an old engine bypasses the thinking brain entirely. Most people assume they love the sound of an old engine because it simply sounds good. That's not wrong, but it's nowhere near the full picture. When your brain hears any sound, the logical reasoning part isn't the first to respond.
The sound reaches your emotional brain first, the part that handles memory and feeling, almost instantly before your thinking brain has processed what happened. This is why an old V8 or a classic inline-4 can hit you in the chest before you can explain it. That physical reaction isn't nostalgia, it's pure biology. And here's what tells you everything about how important this is. Modern car companies now pipe artificial engine sounds through interior speakers in new vehicles, not because it serves any practical function, because without it, drivers feel emotionally disconnected from the machine. Manufacturers have literally had to engineer a substitute for the one thing old machines produce naturally every single time the key turns. Intelligent people notice when something feels hollow, even when they can't immediately say why. With old machines, there's nothing fake. What you hear is exactly what's happening. Reason 4. Fixing an old machine gives the brain a win that modern work almost never does. This is probably the most overlooked reason of all 5, and it's about what happens when you actually work on these machines with your hands. Old machines demand constant attention. You adjust, repair, rebuild, and every time something broken comes back to life, every time you solve a fuel problem and the engine settles into a smooth idle, your brain's reward system fires. Here's why that matters so much. Modern intellectual life is largely abstract. You send emails, sit in meetings, move information around on screens. At the end of a long day, it's genuinely hard to point to anything physical and say, "I made that. That works because of me." Working on an old machine hands your brain something it almost never gets in modern life: undeniable proof that you did something real. The thing was broken. You fixed it. You can see it, hear it, touch it. Researchers who study hands-on work have found that it engages multiple senses simultaneously: the resistance of metal, the smell of oil, the sound of a part seating correctly, pulling you completely into the present moment. It is the neurological opposite of a screen. Intelligent people are often most starved of this feeling. Old machines are one of the few things that reliably give it back. Reason 5. Old car windshields actually work better with your brain. This last one comes directly from Mazda's neuroscience research team, and almost nobody outside of engineering has ever heard of it. When experienced drivers said old cars felt more natural to drive and easier to read the road from, Mazda's team didn't dismiss it, they studied it. Using brain imaging that tracks what your eyes are unconsciously drawn to, they found something real. Modern aerodynamic windshields, the wide, steeply angled ones, quietly pull your visual attention towards places your brain wasn't intending to look. The frame shape of a modern windshield creates a visual pattern that draws your eyes away from where they need to be. Old cars, with their upright, narrower frames, give your visual system a cleaner and more natural view of the road, one that lines up with how the brain actually wants to process moving through space. This is why seasoned drivers say old cars feel more alive or more connected. They're not romanticizing. Their brain is receiving cleaner spatial information because the windshield is working with their visual system instead of against it. Here's what's worth sitting with. Old cars and motorcycles have always been described in emotional language: character, soul, freedom. None of that is inaccurate, but those words are describing the feeling of something the brain is doing at a much deeper level, something most enthusiasts have never had the language for. The science keeps landing on the same pattern. Old machines create conditions the modern brain almost never encounters on its own: high mental demand with low emotional noise, real unfiltered sensory input, real proof of competence, complete presence with no system doing the work. That combination does not just feel good in the moment, it switches off the anxiety circuit, sharpens thinking over time, gives the reward system something genuine to work with, and exercises exactly the parts of the brain most at risk from how most of us live now. Maybe that's what intelligent people who love old machines have always known without being able to say it. It was never really about the car. It was never really about the bike. It was about what those things do to the mind that nothing else quite replaces.